Hey guys, what's going on? It's Broken Nose Gaming here. As you can see by the video format and the fact that you can see me, that means we're back on my main computer and not the laptop. The big computer's been brought back to life. All I did was add a new processor. I'm now running a 5700X 3D inside of it. I could go on about that, but that's probably going to be for another video. What we're here to talk about today is week 2 of the auction update. Now, I usually update later on because there's usually, like last week, I think we had an extra 8 tanks added. Right now, we're only at 6, but that's because I'm doing this a day early. And the reason why I'm doing it a day early is because I'm also getting ready to do a video for the 25th when it comes to this week. I was going to do a video for that. And then on top of that, we also have the auction week 3 that'll be coming up in Friday, so I'm kind of condensed a little bit. I should have about 3 videos coming out this week versus just 1 or 2. So I just kind of decided to push it ahead a little bit so I could kind of space it out a little bit better. But there's literally going to be 2 videos back to back. There's going to be a video today, and then tomorrow there will be another video, and then on Friday will be our 3rd video. But anyways, so there might be more tanks that get added this week, because like I said, we're at 6 instead of 8. So just keep an eye on the auction website. But I will talk about the 6 tanks that have been released for the update so far of this week's auction. They are going to be anywhere from tier 8 to tier 7. We will go in order from high tier to low tier. I can go over them really quick. We have the Tier 8 German tank, the KPZ-07RH. We have the Soviet Heavy, the IS-3 Defender. We have the Tier 8 British Tank Destroyer, the GSOR-1008 or the GSOR-1008. The Tier 7 US Tank Destroyer, the T-28 HTC. The Soviet Medium, the T-4485. And finally, the Tier 7 Hybrid Nation Heavy / Halloween tank, the Lycan. So there may be 2 more tanks that come out on the next day, so just double check if they do or not. But that is what they've released for week 2 for the update. So like I said, we will start at the highest tier and go down. So that means we would be starting at tier 8 with the KPZ-07RH. This tank, I believe, was in the Black Friday event, and I'm a little let down because I was hoping maybe we would see a different variety of tanks for the auction, and I've kind of already gone over this tank when it came to its stats and what I think of it, so I'll keep this short. But essentially, the KPZ-07RH is a post-World War II tank, probably early Cold War design or something like that. As you can see, its turret is literally just a round drum, but it's different in the sense that it is oscillating, even though you can't really see, and that's because it has this giant collar that runs around the outside of the turret, and there's a little cutout for the main gun to go down. So in theory, it's a little bit thicker, and also you should be able to go hull down and block shots with it. The hull isn't amazing. It's kind of like any other medium hull, easily penetratable, but the big thing is kind of the turret. It's got a good rate of fire. As I said before, some people have called this like a down-tiered Leopard 1. Has a pretty good rate of fire, and it's pretty mobile like the Leopard 1. I personally like this tank. It is a fun tank. If you didn't get it in the Black Friday event, here's another option for you to pick it up in the auction. So if you're a medium player and you don't have this tank yet, it's fairly fun. I do pretty well in it, and generally, when I see them on the red team, they do okay too. So, I don't think this is a bad tank. I would probably recommend taking a look at it if you're a medium player. And then up next is the IS-3 Defender. Now, the IS-3D is one of the earlier Defender Series tanks. So, like all other Defender Series tanks, it's an autoloader. This is just an IS-3, I believe, with a stock turret and a 122, and it has a 3-shot autoloader. So it's hard for me personally to recommend the IS-3D, mainly because the T-28 Defender exists, and while it doesn't have quite as high alpha as the IS-3D does. I like the T-28 Defender. It's a little bit more user-friendly in its armor layout, and it's got a shorter interclip reload. The IS-3D is more mobile than the T-28 Defender, but outside of that, lower plate's pretty big, as any pike nose tank would be, not quite as big as the 252U. And if you angle your tank, well, now your pike nose is flat and it's easy to pen. The other issue is, yes, you have a 122 main gun, and it does a fairly large amount of alpha. I believe it's 400. Its intraclip reload is about on par with the M4Y at about 7.5 seconds. Unlike the M4Y, though, its full clip reload is closer to about 20 to 22 seconds, and that's just a really long time. Like, I can handle the M4Y's reload of 14 seconds. It's literally just twice as long as the intraclip, but for this 22 seconds, that's a long time. The other thing that the M4Y has over the IS-3D is the M4Y has 4 rounds in its autoloader clip, where the IS-3D only has 3. So you wait longer for only 3 shots. Granted, you do more alpha, but overall, I just feel like there are better Defender Series tanks than the IS-3D at this point. And up next is the GSOR 1008. This tank destroyer is pretty fun. It has HESH, and HESH is fun because it does very large amounts of alpha, and it has fairly okay pen. It doesn't have great pen, but it has okay pen. It's workable, especially if you add the calibrated shells into the mix. Now, the GSOR is fairly mobile. It is a 2-shot autoloader, and it doesn't have the best armor, as many tank destroyers do, but it's fun. You know, it's kind of like the T-77, another 2-shot autoloader. Like, let's talk about the 2-shot autoloaders real quick, like the Object 752 and the T-77. Also the Tier 9 and Tier 10 Yo if you use the larger caliber gun. It is fairly fun to be able to drop 2 large alpha shells out on an enemy tank and then just be able to pull away, not having to sit there for that 3rd shell to complete your whole setup. And with HESH having higher alpha than normal, it's even more fun. I mean, you can do, like, 900, 800 damage on just 2 shells and then scoot out of there and take off. The magazine reload's a little long. Personally, I like the GSOR. I would recommend this tank. So that is it for Tier 8. We're going to drop into Tier 7 now. There's 3 Tier 7s. We're going to start with the US tank destroyer, the T-28 HTC. This is an interesting tank destroyer. It has fairly good armor, save for a few spots, but like frontally, if you are up front or if you angle, most tiers below or of same tier will have trouble penetrating you. Tier 8, they might be able to penetrate you frontally, but there are 2 very glaring weak points when it comes to the T-28 HTC, and that is these machine gun baubles on the side here. If you do happen to come across a T-28 HTC and you're having trouble penetrating here, look at the corners and see if you can penetrate those little MG baubles. They tend to be low enough armor to where anyone should be able to pen them. The T-28 HTC, I believe, carries a 105, so it has 310 alpha. It does have a very wide arc when it comes to its gun traverse, which is pretty nice, but it is also fairly slow. It does carry that over from its relatives, the T-28, the T-95. It's not a very fast tank. It is a fairly heavy tank. Maybe keep an eye out on this one. It's fun in certain situations, but lack of mobility can be a little less enjoyable when it comes to that. And now moving on to the next Tier 7 tank, we have the T-4485. The T-4485 is a T-44 down-tiered into Tier 7, so it's got a little bit better armor than, say, the T-43, but it only carries an 85mm gun. This is the same 85mm gun, I believe, that the T-3485 Rudy carries, but unlike the Rudy, the T-4485 is a lot lower profile, fairly more squat, and The armor's a little bit better. I wouldn't say it's a lot better, but it's a little bit better than the Rudy. The T-4485 isn't bad. I would definitely recommend the T-4485 over the T-3485 Rudy. Our last tank on the auction, at least for right now, is the Tier 7 Heavy from the Hybrid Nation, the Lycan. Now, the Lycan is a Halloween tank. It has a special ability, which we will look at in a second. But the Lycan is kind of like an IS tank. It has a very large caliber gun. I believe it's a 122. Has very similar reload, very similar handling stats, very similar alpha. It does have better gun depression than IS series tanks, but you can even kind of see if you look at it head on. This is basically a pike nose. I mean, this is kind of like, you know, like an IS-3-ish kind of pike nose. Now, it does have one special feature being a Halloween tank that other tanks don't have, and if we look at that really quick, it is called Werewolf Defense. Essentially, the modules don't get damaged, so you technically don't need a repair kit. You need a health kit, because you do have a crew, unlike the Tonkenstein, but your engine, your gun, you know, things like that don't get damaged. The only time that you can get ammo racked or have fire occur on your tank is if you were to play this in big boss mode and you got hit by like one of the mega shots or something from the big boss themselves. Otherwise, you don't have to worry about damage to your internal modules. You will still get tracked. At least you don't have to worry about losing your ammo rack or your engine or things like that. So that does make it kind of cool. If you're an IS player of any sort, if you like the 122 style gameplay with the longer reload, the higher alpha, if you like the pike nose, but you want more gun depression, it will give you that extra gun depression, and I believe we can even look at the gun depression really quick. It's got 10 degrees of gun depression, which is much more than, you know, IS series tanks have. I do tend to play the Lycan more than I play the IS family of tanks if I'm really in the mood to play like an IS series tank, because there are just added benefits to this tank. So, you know, if that's kind of your thing, then I would probably recommend this tank. So that is our 6 tanks that have popped up for the auction update. Like I said, though, there might be more that show up just because I am making this video a little bit earlier than normal. So keep an eye out on the auction website for that. But of these 6 tanks, what would I recommend? The KPZ-07RH is definitely one I would recommend. The GSOR 1008 and the Lycan would all be tanks that I could probably recommend without hesitation to anyone. The one tank that I probably wouldn't recommend is the IS-3D, and that is just because I feel like it's a little bit dated and there are more user-friendly tanks, especially in the Defender series, available than the IS-3D. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video. I hope that this video was helpful for those of you who were maybe kind of on the fence about some of these tanks that have cropped up in this week's auction, or if you just haven't ever seen them before, this helps you out a little bit. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to end this video, and keep an eye out because we're going to have another video right after this one the next day, and then you'll see another one on Friday, just because of how kind of condensed this week is. But until I see you guys in that next video, take it easy. Bye-bye.